So there's these four big categories that we also look at when we're looking, in addition to identifying the deletions, the distortions, and the generalizations that people make. There's also these these big four blocks in the language patterns and meta programs that people have that also influence their behavior. So these four are like this inclination for people to either move toward or move away from their desired goal. And we'll get into the specifics of that in a second. There's, people being internally motivated versus externally motivated. There's also looking at is an individual a global thinker versus a specific thinker. Is the person the type of person that needs something to see something once, or do they need to see it several times? Right? When it comes to making a decision, when it comes to taking an action, etc. So, what does this mean, right? Being towards versus away. When a person has this inclination, what this means toward versus away, is that the client is motivated by either moving away or towards something. So, for example, if you ask the client why they want to lose weight and they say, I hate feeling heavy, this is a moving away meta program. As opposed to you ask them, why do you want to lose weight? And they say, I love feeling fit and light. That's a moving towards. Another example is if you tell someone, why do you want to be wealthy? And the person tells you, because I hate being broke. That's a moving away meta program, right? So you see the language, right? Is they're moving as they're speaking, they're literally moving away from their desired outcome. But when they say, why do you want to be wealthy? And they say, I want to be free to buy everything I want. I want to be free to give back. I just want freedom in my life, right? That's a moving towards. And this is really important, right? In our own thinking with our clients, because sometimes we say we want something, but we keep saying that we literally want the opposite of that. And the mind can't understand, like, I don't want to be broke. All the mind understands is be broke. And so this is super important for us to be able to identify in our clients, because once the client, like you can show your client, hey, what if instead of saying that you don't want to be fat, you say you want to be fit, you want to feel energized. Like you literally start to feel different. They literally start to feel different. Like the thoughts in their minds are literally sending different messages to their body. Is this clear to everybody? Is this triggering something for you as I'm saying this? No, you're not thinking about something that you could have been saying to yourself differently?
Yes, because like I have this practice of like doing a vision board at the beginning of every year. And even sometimes the affirmations can be almost like a moving away from something versus moving towards. And I think moving towards something makes it seem a lot lighter,
Yeah.
a lot more possible, versus away is almost like a consequence for something you've done previously.
Yeah. The language, words create worlds, literally. And right, when I teach this, I want to really insert in here, let's take an extra dose of self-compassion, because we didn't know. We literally did not know this, right? Some people, like, up until this moment, that maybe they've been telling themselves, you know, I'm going to overcome, all obstacles in my life. I can overcome all obstacles in your life. Like, you don't want to be putting that in the universe. You don't want to even putting the word obstacles or overcoming. Like, we do not want to insert that into the grid of reality. But we didn't know that. We did not, sometimes we just did not know we were that powerful, but now we know. Right? We know it for ourselves, and then we know it for our clients. Right? The opposite of that, it's like, I receive all things with ease. I engage in everything with ease and joy, because ultimately that's what we want, in peace. Right? But we have this fighting mentality that we've been programmed, which literally keeps us fighting. So this is super important, just to stay aware of this. And so when you do your client interviews, you're going to notice, right, when people talk about the obstacles, when you're writing the vision statement, you want to keep those obstacles out of the vision statement. And when people are, coming to you with this type of language, you always want to ask them, so what is the opposite? Like, I feel overwhelmed and confused. What is the opposite of overwhelmed and confused? I always ask for the opposite, right? So that we can be solutions focused, moving toward what we want at all times. Okay. So that starts in our thinking first, and then in the way that we speak, and that literally changes the way we feel. All right. The next one is a really, 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 really important one too. Being internally versus externally motivated. When a client is motivated by someone else's opinion, or is internally driven, or is motivated by something that's happening on the outside versus the feeling or what it is that they want for themselves. So for example, we have this example of the weight thing again. Like, if you ask what's been stopping your client from losing weight, and they say, I don't know what my significant other would think about it. Are they being internally or externally motivated? What would you say?
Externally.
Externally, right? What would be an internal shift for them, for this person? Instead of saying, I don't know what my significant other would think about it, what would be an internal orientation? What would that person say?
I want to do this for myself.
Mm-hmm. Or the question is like, what's stopping you? Like, if you ask me, I would like, I love eating sweets. I don't care what anybody has to say. I love my sweets. So this is, and then again, this is an observation, right? For you, this is a tool of observation, so that you can see how your client thinks, how they make decisions. So then you can, and with this, right, you want to coach them into being a little bit more internally motivated. Why? Because internal motivation is the sustainable way. Everything can come and go. Jobs come and go, people come and go, but we want we want to get our clients to be um, internally motivated, because they are the only person that they can control, that they have any type of control over, really. Is this clear to everyone? Can I get a nod? Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next one is being global versus specific, right? I know this is just something else to look at. Is the person, when you speak to a client, do they global thinkers, right? They don't want to waste time on the small print. They want, a big picture and kind of space to to kind of really think about the bigger things, and not worry about the specifics. While someone that's specific, they want to review every line in the contract. If you told them that it's $9.99, they want their penny back. Like it's, they're very, very specific. And so with this, it's just identifying, and you can see at work, like, who are your global thinkers and who are your specifics. When you speak to someone, you can hear it in their language and, in the way that they're worried about, either like, oh, we're gonna do amazing on this project, while the other ones are like, sometimes like, no, we really have to think about, what are the different steps. They want to do a whole like rundown of what's gonna happen minute per minute at a meeting or an event. And so this is not like one is better than the other. It's more of like, one, it's an observation tool for you, so that if you, in your client, you can shift your orientation to what feels best for them and help them reach a sense of balance. Because being at the two extremes of this is not really healthy, right? You can be a super global thinker and not pay attention to detail, or be a like super, like, be so focused on detail that you don't see the bigger picture. Right? So this is an observation tool, so that when we see our clients like going in one direction that's not helpful, right, we can veer them off to the other side. Is this clear to you? So I'm curious to know, like, what do you consider yourself to be? You can put it on the chat. Do you consider yourself to be more of a global thinker, or are you more on the specific side? Jocelyn, did you have a question?
I was gonna say, like, how do you, I guess, respectfully veer people? Like, how do you come back to someone if they're saying something like, I guess, going back to the other scenario of the losing weight, right? And then you're asking them what's stopping you, and they're saying, well, I really like sweets. Then what? Then how do you get back to, okay, well, is this an actual goal of yours? Like, is that something you would say?
Right. So you could, I mean, depending on where you are in the conversation with them, right? This is like a rough example where you can say to them, so you like eating sweets. That's what you like. So I always scale it, right? I always say from a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want to be fit? Like, or do you want to be healthy? Let's say. Well, how much do you want to lose weight? Like 10, like, I want to lose weight today. Like, this is the most important thing in my life. And 0 is like, you know what? I really don't care. I can care less. Right. And then they say, you know what? Like, let's say the person says, oh my God, Jocelyn, like, it's really a 9. Like, there's nothing that I want more. And then you say, well, how much do you love sweets from a 0 to 10? Right? You can always scale it for them and saying, what do you need in order to start maybe slowing down on eating sweets? When, at what time of the day are you most tempted to eat sweets? Is there like, what could you substitute the sweets with? Different questions, like, to get them thinking of ways to deconstruct their fixation on the sweets and focus a little bit more and feel motivated, right, towards want to make healthy choices. But again, this all depends on like where you are in the conversation with the person. Yeah. Does that make sense? Great. So let's see, I have here, Alyssa feels like she's more specific. Jocelyn, global. Alyssa, wait, global thinkers at work trying to drive me nuts. Global thinkers at work, they tend to drive you nuts, right? Because they're like, they don't get it, right? They don't get that there is a process that needs to be followed. Magali is a global thinker for sure. Natasha, 60-40, global and specific. Gotcha. So I'm definitely like, if I had to choose one, I'm more of a global thinker, and I hired someone that works for me that's a specific thinker because I love the fact that I'm a global thinker, quite
That's
honestly.
how it usually works, though. That's what drives me crazy. It's like the globals come up with wonderful ideas and then are looking at somebody else to execute the plan. And I'm like, but wait, like I didn't come up with this grand idea. So I guess, what you were saying, being one of one specific one is not necessarily good. So I'm going to try to like change my mindset a little bit and try to become big picture and global with the thinking.
Right. Like you can totally do that. And you can also like create some really beautiful boundaries around how much work these global thinkers are giving you. Because I am quite literally like sending note messages to my assistant at like 10 o'clock at night. Like, so I think we should do this.
That's my boss.
Yep.
I can't. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and I told her, I was like, she has work hours, and I said, even though if I send you a message at 11 o'clock, like, please turn off the notifications when it comes to me. Like, you do not need to respond to me. Like, let me just get this out. But yeah, we work really well because I get it. Like, I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but she's amazing. Like, she's what people call like a squirrel. Like, she'll just go and like get it done. But I told her only do it within our working hours. Like, I don't want you to be burnt out by my crazy amounts of ideas. But that's me.
Well, that's good because a lot of global thinkers don't necessarily say that and want the kind of specifics to happen right then and right now. So boundaries are great. So let me try to establish that.
Yeah, of course, of course. Like, we need you. We need you specifics to be happy and able to take, what we want you to do and do it gladly. Not to do it like you're not a machine. I mean, that's my understanding. But yeah, I get it. There's a lot of people that don't think that way about their employees at all. Um, so the other one is, right, once versus several times. Like, are you the kind of person that needs to see something one time, or do you need to see it several times? And I think in this point, it really depends on on what it is, right, on the situation. But there is like sometimes this general inclination that you can notice in people if they're the kind of person that just kind of like counts on their gut feeling to do something, or if they're the kind of person that, maybe needs to see dozens of testimonials to make a decision, or they can do it on the spot, or even when you're telling your client like they decide on a course of action. And sometimes it's like you decided on that, but for some reason the person needs to kind of revisit that many times until they actually do it. And so being able to identify that in your client is also really important for the sense of, right, having that observation tool of like, okay, maybe this is the kind of person, maybe they're not being lazy. They just need to see it several times. And this is a situation where like neither extreme is good, right? Because sometimes if like you just go with your gut feeling, you may be taking risks that you're not really unmeasured risks. Or if you need to see something too many times, like you're wasting valuable time. Right. So it's really an observation tool so that you can help your client make the kind of decisions that support them in achieving their goal. At the end of the day, these are all tools to help you help your clients achieve their goal. Is this clear? Yes? Okay. So how can we use this information in our coaching practice? You can feel free to unmute yourself and let me know your thoughts. This information that we just shared, how can you use these 4 meta models? How can we use that in our coaching practice? Magalis, can I call on you? You're muted.
I don't know exactly. It depends of the situation.
Depends on the situation, but these,
Yes.
right? Like these
Yes, I
specific
need to
ones.
figure out that, but I don't know exactly how can I do it using those
Using these.
examples. Yes.
Anyone have any ideas? How can we use this in our coaching practice?
Because should I use all of them? Should I use just one? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Right, it's really situational. It's really
Uh-huh.
based on the situation.
Okay.
But how can you use it? That's the question. Alyssa.
I think it goes back to being able to like address like strategy of the coaching plan. Like if someone is a global thinker, then how can you like employ some strategies to get them to be more specific, and what kind of questions can you ask to pull out the details of what needs to happen in order for them to draw their own conclusion. And if somebody often finds like that they need to get external motivation to do a thing, then how can you ask questions to figure out how you can internally motivate that person to come up with their own solutions?
Right. You're right. It's really about building the strategy, right, based on what you're observing. And so let's say if the person sometimes, if you notice that the person is very driven by external motivation, sometimes you got to work with that. You gotta, so what's the motivation you're gonna get to get it done, and then gradually, right, move them towards being more internally motivated, because you're not gonna change them, overnight. Thank you for that. Natasha, I saw you raise your hand.
I was going to say essentially what Alyssa said, but also too, I think depending on the goals that the client has, you might need to employ different methods.
Right, exactly. So the goal is always your guiding light. It's always about what does the client want to achieve and when. Right, and then everything that I just shared, these are just different lenses that you can look at them with, and then and notice that about them, right? And then based on what you observe, help them to move towards their goal with ease and what works for them, but developmentally, right? Then taking them to the next level. By saying, I know that you're very externally motivated. You're motivated by accolades. You're motivated by praise. Let's say you're motivated by money. That's all good. Let's get you there, right? And then, right, let's figure out what's behind that. How can you be a little bit more internally motivated? And we're not saying that one is better than the other. It is what it is. And it's really up to the client. Maybe the client doesn't want to grow developmentally; they just want what they want. But you'll notice as you start to coach people that when you're mirroring back their thinking, there's always a desire behind the desire. And so that it really depends on how deep the person wants to go. Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Any questions on this before I move on to obstacles of listening? No? Okay.